Tessa.
Hey.
Tricia. My name's Tricia.
I realize that that's something I do. I don't say people's names a lot, but something I was trying to work on. I failed.
Addressing them by name?
Well, yeah, just like using people's names more in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you become more attentive to the conversation when people say your name.
Oh, yeah. One of the hottest things, I remember reading this somewhere, but when you're attracted to someone, like them saying your name does something.
Yeah.
Or,
Like guys that
if you're trying to pick someone up, just say their name again.
Yeah.
Just if I heard a hot guy in college just like say my name a bunch of times to me, I was like, dance off, pants off. It's time. Oh, welcome to Strong Female Lead. Hi, it's a podcast.
Yes, it is.
We're doing it.
Yep.
We talk about strong female leads. We deconstruct strong female leads in movies and television, and it's what we do. It's what we're about.
Yep. What movie are we doing today?
We are doing Welcome to Me, starring Kristen Wiig. When did this movie come out? Like 2014? I don't know.
Yeah, I want to say like after Bridesmaids. Maybe this is immediately following Bridesmaids.
And I think she has a couple indie movies on Netflix where she's the star of them.
And she's a skeleton twin with
Oh yeah, what's his name?
the boy version of her.
Yeah.
Bill Hader, I think.
Bill Hader.
Yeah.
Oh, have you guys seen Barry?
Yes.
No.
Andrew and I think there was like 2 episodes left and we didn't finish it. We
do
watched
that all
all
the
of the
time.
first season, the second season. I like that show.
I think I started in the first season. It's so good.
Yeah.
I think you'd like it, Tessa.
I think he's like a pitman, right?
And
But he's an aspiring actor.
I mean, who isn't in this town?
And it's just such a great character. It's so fucking weird. And isn't he from Ohio or something? All those weird characters are always from Ohio. I think it might even be Cleveland.
In the show he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, there you go. It's always someone. That's
fine.
Okay, so welcome to me. Alice Kleig is the main character, and she is played by Kristen Wiig, and she is a woman who suffers from borderline personality, and she wins the lottery.
Thanks for calling the California Lottery. If you're calling to report a winning, just say, I'm a winner at any time.
I'm a winner at any time.
She wins $86 million, and she decides to take that cash and create her own talk show that is 100. She buys 100 episodes worth. This small studio that's struggling, and so they're willing to do whatever, and they fully exploit her. But she decides to buy a talk show and be the host and have every single episode just about her. And that's it.
I feel like that's the dream.
So this is one of those characters that I'm not sure whether to take it as an insult, but much like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, you told me that character reminded you of me, or I reminded you of that character. One of my friends told me to watch this movie years ago because she reminded her of me. So
Yeah.
I'm going to take a deep dive into that at some point with my therapist and figure that out. But yeah, so what she does is she buys this talk show, but she discontinues her medication, which is probably part of the reason why she makes this decision. And she moves into a casino, and she lives with her best friend, Gina, who is played by Linda Cardellini. Fucking phenomenal supporting female actress in everything she fucking does.
Yeah, and ageless.
Ageless.
I don't get it.
She's stunning. Have you seen Bloodline?
No.
It's on Netflix. She's very good in it. So yeah, so what do you think about this character? Like, I picked her because when I pick strong female leads, I like to pick leads that break the mold. They play a character that I've never seen before. Typically they're complex, like maybe in their background or their decision making. For her, it's living with her mental illness. And I just like picking ones that sort of break stereotypes. And that's really why I picked her. What do you think about her as a character or this portrayal of a woman with borderline?
I mean, I really like this movie. I've seen it quite a few times. But I think when I think about this movie, I think it's hard for me to separate maybe the portrayal of someone with, because this is essentially like a story of a woman going off, like, you know, having an extraordinary circumstance and that she's winning $86 million and then going off her meds. Then it's just a series of like bad decisions making and then chaos and kind of like, and not to say that the people in her life are not trying to, you know, put the bumpers up so she doesn't hurt herself, but like she's very much going off the rails, and we're watching kind of her descent, really just her descent. And then something about that to me is like very unsettling. And I think it is like somewhat unsettling because she's a person with mental health issues, where she's off the meds now and people are exploiting her. And though it is funny, I'm just like, ow. You know, the human part of me is just like, stop this, help her. Like,
yeah, that she's an adult and it's not easy to do that, right? And now she's a rich adult, which she makes sure that we know based on her prepared statements.
Yeah.
That she is constantly reading. And yes, we need to talk about some of those because they're fucking brilliant. The writing on this, like that kind of writing, that's the kind of thing that actually makes me laugh out loud. I love the writing for this. Like, it just kind of, I don't know, it kind of seemed like it didn't have to even be a woman with borderline. It could just be a character that Kristen Wiig played on SNL. You know, like if you took away the borderline thing and you just had this eccentric girl.
I feel like I wouldn't like her. I probably wouldn't like this movie as much if she didn't have borderline, to be honest.
You think you wouldn't like her just as a quirky...
Well, as a sketch. Like, I could watch that for like 5 minutes, but like to watch 90 minutes of this, no. I think she would be very one-dimensional if she was just kooky and she didn't have any, like, that depth that's coming from us knowing that she's, even though the appearance is that, like, she's eccentric, she's actually not just eccentric. She's, she has borderline.
Right. I liked that she had borderline also. I think that's one of those fascinating personality disorders. And from what I've read about it and what I've learned about it is it's very difficult to treat. The symptoms, a lot of them, impulsive sex, impulsive decisions. Mm-hmm. She doesn't react emotionally in the way that you think she would. Like, it's very self-focused, and she can't show a lot of empathy and stuff. You know, it's not necessarily that she's a bad person. She just doesn't. It's
a lot of I hear you, but nothing to indicate that she understands you, which is to me the most like interesting thing about from what I've seen. And just like documentaries and things of people with bipolar, it's a very much like I hear you in the way that they respond to things, which I think was like really well captured in the film. And
they only help in the ways that they can. So, you know, it was very sweet at the end of the movie that she gives her friend $7 million. That doesn't show a deep understanding of the hurt that she caused her. It's sort of like, I should do something. I care about this person. Now I can make it better with this. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's just stuff like that that's just so fascinating about it. So the therapy for borderline personality is called dialectic behavioral therapy, and it's different from CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the super common one that therapists use. And the reason it's different is because there's not a lot of like analysis of why you're feeling the way you are. There's some, but it's more, like it's not cognitive, right? So they're not thinking about why they behave a certain way. It's more like how to bring symptoms down and then how do you proceed? And the reason I know that is because I did an intensive outpatient for anxiety a couple years ago, and they taught us DBT. And a lot of DBT is mindfulness too. Research is showing that that helps with symptoms also. But I think it's so fascinating because it is for borderline. It was initially developed for borderline patients, but now they're using it across the spectrum for all sorts of conditions, you know, depression, bipolar, generalized anxiety. And I thought for me personally, it was the best type of therapy I had ever had. And I'd been in years of therapy with CBT, but it never helped me to think more. So what helped me is to bring down, to kind of stop the thoughts or let them go and not attach and then handle it. But some of the weird DBT stuff is truly like rehearsing how to interact with people. So you would see some of that too. And like, I have empathy, so I don't necessarily have to do that. But people with borderline, like there's a script sometimes that they have to use in order to interact meaningfully with people. And I don't know, it's a fascinating condition. I mean, it just must be so difficult to be a person with borderline. I can just imagine the highs are so high, the lows are so low, and you can't really get anyone to understand you, and you can't really react in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I think what I always find interesting about people, actually diagnosed with bipolar is that they're often misdiagnosed with bipolar 2, or just being bipolar 1 or 2. I always think that that's an interesting misdiagnosis, because they're very similar, actually, between bipolar and in terms of symptoms. They're not similar in terms of your diagnosis, but they're similar in terms of...
One is more manic.
Yeah, and that's what people see, is that mania, which would be like her on a spending spree and like ordering like, why doesn't my show look like Oprah? I want all the things that Oprah has. And then her set was really nice, but
she's borderline.
She is. Yeah, I'm just saying that like that mania is what people really is how it gets misdiagnosed as being bipolar.
Oh, when it might be something
when it's
like hers.
Yeah, when it might be something like that. And if we didn't know that she's coming off her meds, I would have assumed that she was bipolar.
Yeah, I really didn't know she was borderline until I read it. Like, I knew that she suffered from something, and I would have assumed it was bipolar, actually. And I think bipolar is clearly a really difficult illness to live with. But she even said, like, she was misdiagnosed. You know, it was bipolar, then it was rapid cycling bipolar, and then it was borderline. And I think that bipolar is easier to treat. Well, I mean...
And I think it's easier to represent. I think the creative team made this movie, took a tremendous leap in trying to capture what is being, what is BPD on screen. And that's again why it's like so uneasy for me to watch it, because I was like, oh my god, I'm laughing at her at different points throughout the movie instead of with her. And I kind of like akin that to the experience of the people in the studio audience, who it's like, first it's like kind of the novelty of like, oh my god, she's like so weird.
I would have watched it.
Yeah, I totally would watch it, and I want to say that I've seen that show before on public access TV, because literally anybody can do it. But the parts that make me feel like uneasy is like when you cut to her in her therapist's office, and we know more and more about Alice Kleig as the story goes on, and you're like, oh, am I still laughing at her? Am I still like on board? Or I'm like, oh, I'm kind of like switching, like as a viewer, to team like get this girl help. And then you see her relationships, because it's very much also in this movie about the relationship she has with her family and the people who surround her, who are at times using her, just as much about them as it is about her.
Yeah, I think the exploitation on the part of the studio, especially the character Rich, was pretty disgusting. I mean, it was kind of, there's a part of you that's like, wow, okay, he's willing to allow her to do this. Like, it's going to be crazy, for lack of a better word. Like, we have no idea what she's going to do while on TV. So it's a big risk. So there's a part that's like, well, that's kind of awesome. And then it's like, no, it's not. You're just using her to get some money into the studio, but they know that she's not going to be like lifelong partners with them. They just want to get the studio back up and running, it sounded like, and they were willing to take this risk because this woman had so much money and was basically just writing a check for them right then and there.
Yeah. I wish that, like, and maybe there was and I just missed it, but like some way to tell, like, as she's coming off her meds, like throughout the movie, like if, I don't know, maybe they did do something like, like a change in the way of the lighting or something to show that, like, how she's coming down. Because it does, like, when she's initially, like, with Tim Robbins, and Tim Robbins is her therapist, she's on meds, but she's, like, kooky. And I'm like, oh, she's like, okay, what's going on, Alice? Like, something's obviously, like, kooky about her, and you're like, okay, I'm on board. And then to see her, like, kind of the beginning of the third act, when she's got her full set, and she's got these, like, life cycle spinning sets, and she's slandering all these people who used to be in her life, and I'm like, obviously this is her completely off her meds. And I'm like, I wonder if there was, and I just missed it, some way to delineate that, other than, like, if you're very familiar with plot structure, like
in a cinematography sense.
Yeah,
they really didn't
being shown.
They didn't play on that with, like, her clothes, the lighting, colors.
Yeah.
They didn't do any of it.
Yeah, because, like, for me, I'm like, as the movie goes on, it just, like, kind of kind of yucky feeling kind of like just creeps up for me. Just because I do like kind of like I involve myself in the plot. And I'm like,
the neutering. It was all going off the rails, but when she was neutering, that was when it was like, oh shit, I can't believe she's neutering dogs on the air. And that was just so fucking gross and wild. That's when I was like, oh my God, she is on the edge and you guys are just taping it. You're taping her about to have a breakdown pretty much.
But I'm like, I don't know, I kind of feel like that's, you know, like taking, you know, moving away from the movie for like a quick second, but like, you know, putting this lens back on like today's society. I'm like, I feel like we do that anyway. So
with reality TV.
Weird. Well, I was going to say, like, I was actually going to say the news, but with reality TV also, but like we were talking earlier about like the news that comes out of Florida, like they have to report everything, but like we laugh at it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these are obviously like not things that mentally healthy people do sometimes, like shooting squirrels and accusing them of stealing and like things like that. And I'm like, and it's funny. It is. It's weird and random, but I'm like, but are we, you know, at what moments in our own lives as like people interacting with our own society do we do the same thing? And like, are we the people exploiting Alice Kleig, or are we her friends and like Elisa Cardinelli encouraging her to get back on her meds? Like, and that's like that juxtaposition that kind of makes me feel a little icky. I'm like, I feel like I'm very much like in the studio audience at the beginning, just like egging her on, like saying like, oh my God, you're weird, but it's so funny, and I love that fucking boat. And I'm like, if I love Oprah just as much as she does, we're like resonating right now. Like, so much of me, it was just like in love with Alice Kleig, and I just see so clearly how this show would be so successful if there was like a Truman Show type thing with an Alice Kleig. That would be a hit. People would watch that. Yeah. But I'm like, how many people are trying to help her? And I'm like, no. But I'm like, that's something for
and
you
like
to take
helping her would like tank the show.
Helping her
so
would
you
tank
need
the
her
show.
to like
you need her to stay unhealthy.
down.
And I'm like, oh my God, don't you feel like a bad person at some point? Like, I understand that this is the story, but like, I'm like, oh my God.
So there is like an ethical issue with that kind of stuff. I agree. And watching it, you know, I didn't feel bad watching this, but I do, just because I think Kristen Wiig is so funny, but I do feel that way. So, you know, I'm obsessed with reality TV. But that being said, I recognize when I'm watching it. So I'm part of the problem, but I also recognize the problem because I know I watch it. So I know that I'm a consumer of it because I think that it sort of it reflects a lot of what society is looking for, what they prioritize, like, and stuff like that. It kind of, whatever's on reality TV is really more showing us what's going on with us. Like that's kind of how I see it. And with one of my favorite shows, Vanderpump Rules, it's super dark. And one of the ethical issues, I think, with Bravo, and I wonder sometimes if Andy Cohen ever has like a little bit of trouble because he's a puppet master. And a lot of these people are making horrible decisions on his show, and they're deep in addiction and deep in, you know, tragedy and all of these situations. But his show gets better, you know, the more of that there is. And especially with Vanderpump Rules, like there's a lot of abuse of drugs and alcohol. And the show wouldn't be what it was if they weren't doing it. So I wonder if a lot of these people aren't getting help because they need to continue on that road in order to stay on the show. And I watch it and I consume it and I'm obsessed with it. But part of it, the reason is when I'm watching it, I'm thinking these things. And now that I don't smoke pot anymore, I don't get as darked out. But when I used to smoke weed and watch like Real Housewives, I would start to feel real weird because it is dark. I mean, a lot of reality stars, a lot of them have ended up killing themselves. I mean, there's like, I read this article, it might have been BuzzFeed. There's a laundry list, not just on Bravo, but in general, because the shows are fucking up their lives.
But I'm like, that's where my uneasy feeling. I mean, I love, like, as a film, I love this movie, but like, when I kind of like extrapolate like the themes of this movie into the real world, that's when I have a problem. Yeah. Because we are the executive producers and the audience. So we are watching people for our entertainment and for some people's profit ruin their lives. Yeah. And I'm like, I think that there's something weird about how okay people are with that.
Totally. I'm like, one of those people, and it is weird. And I don't know why I'm okay with it. Because I do. The more people get fucked up. I love watching pretty people get fucked up.
But there's no redemption. I'm like, it's like, it's only a downward spiral. And I'm like, and this is a movie, so it was going to have an ending that was like uplifting, most likely. Especially when you address the topic of like mental health. There's usually there's always like a sunnier day waiting ahead of you, especially in I think movies that tackle the topics of mental health. But I'm like, in the real world, when we this is happening, like this, we are the audience to, people's cocaine problems and being strung out, and like we just keep feeding them more money, and we keep feeding them our viewership, and I'm like, I feel icky about that too, and I'm like, I think it maybe, I don't know if the chicken came before the egg, like if I felt this way about reality TV, and I do agree that it is a mirror reflecting what is happening in society, but I was like, but wouldn't we want to correct the mirror?
Yeah.
Isn't that the greater desire? Shouldn't that be our greater desire, is to correct the mirror?
I think it reflects to us what's going on. And then I think the fact that a lot of money is made, and because we are a capitalist society, I think money outweighs the desire for people to
that's why the business is doing what it's doing. Why are we doing what we're doing? You've explained, like, that explanation, like, I think I hear a lot, but I'm like, that explains why Bravo is so successful. It doesn't explain why we are accepting.
Still watching. Yeah.
Royal we.
Yeah.
Not you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I eat it up, and the more fucked up it is, the more I'm likely to watch.
But I'm like, I just wish there was, like, more, like, and I know that these shows are out there, but, like, I wish that there was, like, a sober house for reality star people.
There is Celebrity Rehab, which is a major ridiculous exploitation.
Yes.
Dr. Drew. So I love all these other shows. I know they're super dark. But I think Dr. Drew is probably one of the most evil people out there. Like, and the reason I say that is just that show is a fucking joke. And
is it still
a couple of those people have died too afterwards. And I mean, addicts do die. I mean, that is a thing that happens to a lot of addicts, but I think not that he's evil. I mean, don't sue us, Dr. Drew, because he's listening.
Oh, yeah.
He definitely turns into SFL.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, he always gave me a weird feeling. I didn't know why any doctors really that start to put their practice on the air, any doctors that show up on reality shows as the therapist, I always think it's real fucking weird.
I just feel like you have to know that you're entering a space that's not therapeutic. And I feel like the average viewer doesn't know that. Like, even though, like, you're getting some help, this is not a therapeutic. This is not how therapy is conducted. In these still heightened scenarios where you're like in a sober house with people with personalities like that,
and picking certain people on purpose that are going to clash.
Yeah, and it was like it's still produced content, and so that is a move in the right direction. But I don't think like Celebrity Rehab is.
I think that's a move in the wrong direction.
I think it's a move in the wrong direction.
Well, and that, like, showing people getting therapy is a positive. This isn't the way that I would do it, but
I guess I said that one as a joke because you said a sober house, and I'm like, well, they have one, but that one I think is ridiculous. I don't know. Do you watch Celebrity Rehab?
No, I know what it is.
I've seen just a couple seasons, and it's horrifying.
I sound like I'm stuck on a high horse, and like I've never seen reality TV. I've totally watched reality TV. As I get older, it's harder and harder for me to watch. Because I feel like as I've been on my own mental health journey, it's harder and harder for me to support this image that was damaging to me as a person. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it when people willfully engage in that content.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I should not say that I don't get it. I understand it.
Yeah.
Well, I just wish it would change.
I get it. I get what you're saying. And I am one of those people. I watch it for entertainment. I think, well, this person chose to do this. I mean, now they're part of a machine, and I don't know how much there is choice, but it becomes a little more limited once you're part of the machine.
What levels of agency do these people actually have?
But I consume it because it's entertaining, and a lot of people would, I think, agree that sometimes watching reality TV, it just makes you feel better about your own life. And that's some of the reason, too, which is sad.
Super sad outlook.
Yeah, but it's fun. I know. It's real twisted, and it is.
I wouldn't say that, like, every single person on a reality TV show is struggling, though.
No, I'm like, I look at Lisa Vanderpump as an individual, and I was like, she seems fine.
I don't worry about most of them. I watch the show just as much as you do, but I do feel like those kids on Vanderpump Rules are most of them are in a bad way. So those ones I think it's fair to say that. I guess like some of the older people.
But that's why
they're
the
just
show's so good.
I think they're just embarrassing themselves.
And and it's so popular. Like the other shows with young people like that, like Southern Charm is fine, but they're not as volatile. And I guarantee they probably don't have as many viewers. Vanderpump is popular for that reason, and it's fucked up. It is. Some of them are in on the game, I think, and some of them are able to hold it together.
I think
but
that
a lot
makes
of them
them
aren't.
even worse.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like if they're like circles to like being in a garbage situation, like being in on the game that's fucking people up is even worse.
Well, they're getting
than
money.
just participating in it.
They're getting money.
That's like the executive producer in Welcome to Me, like the guy's brother, James Marsden's character. Where
He's
like
the worst.
He's the worst, and I'm like, it's recognizable that he's the worst. I think because it's a character's portrayal through a character. But I was like, this is the guy who's he's supposedly in on the joke, but he's like laughing at somebody who obviously needs help. So I think it's like a weird like chasing your tail. I'm like, well, who started this? Where does it end? How do we get out of the loop? But
and I think it all started reality TV. I remember becoming popular when I was in college, and I think it was because it was cheap to make.
Real world, road rules,
and those started as kind of real portrayals of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you're right. It's very. And then there's the other brother in Welcome to Me, who's kind of like he has one foot in the door, one foot out the door, right? Because he's a part of it, and it's his studio with his brother, but he doesn't like where it's going.
Yeah, and he has a stronger connection to Alice because he like kind of loves her.
Yeah,
like fucks her. He does. That's true, also. But he seems like towards the end to like genuinely care about her, and he's like really affected when he finds out that she's been with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's probably like the friends and family of the people who would be on a reality show who's just like, I know that you're doing this because you need money and you're like in a cycle, but at what point do we step in? What point do we say that your pursuit of fame in this vein isn't worth your mental health or physical health?
Yeah, I mean, there are people on shows like stuff like The Bachelor where their family won't participate and stuff like that. And I understand that because once you enter that realm, like it is, I think it's hard for people to get out. Yeah,
and the break, when I've heard of like people, especially like The Bachelor or Bachelorette people, like having these breakdowns.
Oh, yeah.
And can't handle the pressure from the greater society. And I was like,
well, they didn't get a rose, so that's probably why they had a breakdown.
Probably. Can't all help.
But, I mean, speaking to the dark side of it, have you seen the show Unreal?
Oh, I've heard that's good.
It's really good. It's on Lifetime, and it's supposed to be like a Bachelorette show, but it's the production side, and it's a drama. Mm-hmm. And basically, the lead producer is this girl who is totally a sociopath, and she manipulates all of the people into doing certain things for the show. And it's supposed to be a portrayal of how it used to be. Mm-hmm. How they used to kind of like get them real drunk and stuff like that, which they still kind of do. But it's super dark, and the people are basically just little puppets for them.
Yeah.
And so I do think that there is a quality of it.
Yeah, I'd say that that's a perfect comparison to Alice and the executive producers of her show. And I'm like, also, how does she have stewardship of all of that money? That was my biggest question that was never answered. It's like, if she has two healthy parents,
or like she doesn't have a POA or something.
Yeah, and I was like, and she's come off her meds, and isn't her therapist like, doesn't he have to report that she's gone off her meds? Well, I guess she's not violent. She's not violent.
They have to report if you
because she was getting Social Security or disability for it.
Mm-hmm. They have to report if you are going to hurt yourself or others.
Yeah.
But her going off her meds is not necessarily
ton of money.
Yeah.
Especially when she's, like, acting weird.
Yeah.
Weird for her.
I don't know how easy it is, though, to just take...
I think, like, with a diagnosis like BPD, I think that's in the wheelhouse of a possibility.
But I don't think you can, like, make a blanket statement that, like, you get a diagnosis of BPD, your money's not yours anymore.
No, like, because she's going off her meds and she's acting more and more erratic. I would think that somebody, like, her parents, since they're both, like, healthy, like,
I know,
healthy, I don't know how they're mental
I agree.
But
someone
like,
should have tried.
Yeah, but I was like, how come no one's stepping in and saying, like, hey, maybe $86 million, maybe we put that in a trust for you, and you
I know, what's kind of funny is, like, the way the movie was written, I was sort of like, oh, wow. they're just all being really supportive of her. Like, this is nice. She gets to do what she wants. And it was just kind of like the way it was being fed to me. But you're right.
The comedy. It's the sugar that helps the medicine go down. And then you don't notice that you're like so far down the hole.
But that is part of what BPD is, though. It's like, it's very hard to convince someone to do something they don't want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really a two-way street.
I just don't see her even fighting them about like having someone having conservatorship over.
Yeah, no, they didn't try.
But you're right. Like, she went through a ton of fucking money and all of it.
Yeah.
At the very end.
I mean, I guess like how would they know how much a set costs? And they're probably just like overwhelmed by the extravagance of having like $1 million.
And her being an adult makes it much harder. I mean, it really does. Like, my brother has schizophrenia, and getting him to take meds or go to the hospital was like a years-long thing because he was in his 20s. And it's hard. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. But then, like, would someone I wonder, just someone wants to become her POA or conservator, like, right after she wins that money? That kind of seems like a little unfair, but they should have been doing it anyways.
I'm not saying that because she won the money, they should...
Yeah.
Have conservatorship over her, but after she has the money and is acting erratically, and at least like Lisa Cardinelli's character knows a little bit about her sexual exploits and like that she's acting so far out of character. Maybe someone could have stepped in.
Well, except her mom wasn't. Her parents were actually kind of funny in this. They clearly like didn't want to have anything to do with it, and I did love the scenes like of the show. I mean, mental illness aside, it was really funny when she'd have her mom on the phone and then she'd have scoring. And I was like, I've totally had those fights with your mom where you're truly like stomping your feet. And you're like, Mom! Like you become like a 15-year-old. But her mom said something really interesting. Like, not everyone is an emotional exhibitionist. And that was such a fascinating phrase because I think that does tie into borderline. Like, I think the thing that stuck out for me, for her to show that she was borderline versus bipolar, and I guess I didn't know, this might not be true, it's not a blanket statement, but the borderline part of her stuck out to me in her interactions. Bipolar is mood swings, but people I know who are bipolar are still able to have like meaningful, you know, they react the way you think they would, and there's a show of empathy, and it's really the moods that stick out. Her interactions with people, they were almost, I don't know.
Almost robotic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was just interesting, like, I don't know, I don't think I know anybody who has BPD, but just in some conversations, like when you're talking to someone and you can tell that they're not listening, they're like planning a response. I'm like, my sisters do that.
I think everyone does that to an extent.
To an extent, but like when it's obvious that that's what you're doing, like you have no idea what I just said.
Yeah.
Because you were only thinking of like what I previously said and how you can get back at me for what you are perceiving as a wrong. Like,
okay, that sounds like me when I'm like real deep in an argument. It's not a good side of me.
Not like a normal conversation,
no.
But like, yeah, like something like
if I'm arguing, I'm like, ooh, there's a word. I'm going to stick on that one, and then I'm going to interrogate the person and depose them. Because that's how I argue. And people hate it.
Can we compare it to My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend?
Sure, I've never seen it. So
okay, because I feel like, I mean, you don't find out that the main character in My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend has borderline personality disorder until the third season. And it does get dark, but all the people that she, like, hurt because of her actions, like, they rallied around her. And it was, like, the opposite of this movie, where they let her go off the deep end in this movie. And in that movie, they tried so hard to help her.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was, like, such a responsible depiction of somebody with BPD. Welcome to Me also, but like I loved the depiction of someone with BPD in My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
And honestly, the one person who actually wasn't exploiting her but wasn't helping her was her best friend.
Who's living like kind of, it was like a reality TV show to her. She's like, I want to be involved in this plot line and like overly involving herself in the story of the person.
What's the friend's name again? Paula.
Her
name's Paula.
But Paula is like a very healthy person. She, you know, at least doesn't have like outward signs of some sort of personality disorder, or at least it's not explored on the show.
She probably has codependency though.
Probably.
With Rachel.
Codependent personality.
she needed Rachel to be down so she could be the one to fix her problems and like save her and stuff. And
nice.
Yeah. She liked to be really involved in it. But all the other characters.
Yeah. In the third season to me is like really good because you kind of see Rachel's character confront her diagnosis because she has information that we're not aware of throughout the first
She's not diagnosed yet until...
I'm not going to tell you, the listeners may not have seen it either, but like she has information that we don't have as the viewers. Obviously because she's her and we're...
I'm realizing there is a part of me that enjoys, even in my personal life, being around some really weird situations and people because there's a little part of me that I think, like, honestly gets off on the chaos, like not being intricately involved, but like being around to see it. And I have had certain friendships of mine that were with people that had a very like dramatic life and very like a movie type life that I liked being around because it was interesting. There's one person in particular. I don't know if I was like friends with him for the right reason. I think I liked being around the strange. And especially since I think of people in terms of stories and characters sometimes, like even when my friends tell me stories, I'm like, oh, that's something I'm going to pull into something I write. I think that feeds it too. Mm-hmm. I feel at ease in chaos. So like
I can navigate chaos very well, but I loathe it.
Like I don't start drama and stuff. Like I like my relationships to be, at least I think I do, to be pretty drama free. Like I don't have drama with girlfriends. I don't stir up that stuff. But I get very anxious about day-to-day things, like little things that I can control. But if something happens that is like the bottom falls out, I'm at my best. Like, I'm the person you want to have around. And I don't know if that comes from how I grew up, but like if shit hits the fan, like I navigate well and I feel comfortable. And I don't know why that has, like, even when I'm around people who are chaotic, I guess it doesn't really, like, I don't get emotionally connected to it. And it's weird because I'm a very emotional person. So I don't know if it's a part of me that like I just shut off because of what I had to shut off. Mm-hmm. Like I had to shut off certain parts of myself to like be in that home situation. Yeah. It was just how I did it. So maybe I do that in life. I
know that I attract people like that. I think it's just like something I put out into the ether that attracts people with like, who display like large displays of emotion. Which is not something I feel like it's like a moth to a light. Like it's not something I'm looking for. And I'm not shy about dropping a friend whose emotional baggage is too much for me. Like I'll suggest for as long as I can that maybe you should see someone, maybe we should try something, maybe we could get, let's work out together, let's do something to help you relegate what's going on inside of you, because that's the helper that I had to be as a kid, but I do grow to resent that and I do drop that friend eventually. If you're not helping yourself. I can't do it for forever. I mean, I think that's like...
She can help you help yourself.
I can help you help you. I can help you help you, but I can't help you want to be helped.
Interesting. Yeah. And sometimes I don't... It depends. If I'm close with someone, I'll step in. But like the friend that's life was so fascinating and attractive to me, I mean, he was just spinning on his own and I wouldn't be able to do anything to help. It was, I don't know, it was wild. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot of friends who are very averse to awkwardness and weird situations. And, like I said, I don't like my close personal life to be full of them, but I like some of them on the periphery because I think it makes it interesting. And I'm not averse to it, even though I did have a chaotic household. Like, I'm attracted to it. Mm-hmm.
Because I think, like, we want to create the pattern that we're used to, and having people on the periphery of you who are in chaos. What you would say, in a chaos state is familiar to you. So to keep them not too close but on your periphery seems very much within the wheelhouse of your pattern. That's extremely normal.
Yeah. I mean, like, it baffles me sometimes. Like, there was a time when I lived in Philly, we had this gate that you had to unlock from the inside to get out to the street.
Or just like
with a key.
Ooh, scary.
Exactly. So there was a neighbor who asked me, who I spoke to earlier and asked me to let her out. She lost her key, and I'd never met her before. And I was like, sure. And I let her out. And then she called me on my intercom later, like just buzzed a bunch of times. And I knew it was her, and she had to be let out again. This woman was like in her it was like a hard late 40s. Let's put it that way, is my guess.
I thought you were going to say, like, hard 90.
No, but I mean
she's
hard.
barely hanging on.
Hard meaning, like, she lived
had
life.
A hard life, okay.
She lived life. I could tell, I thought drugs were probably involved. Like, my guess, just in her mannerisms and the way she was acting. And I told my boyfriend at the time, I was like, there's something up with this woman. I'm going to go let her out again, but why don't you come with me? And we walk down the steps. I open the door. It's raining. And she's totally naked, asking to be let out again. And my boyfriend was a big talker, a big showman, and he was silent for the first time in his life, like in total shock. And I felt totally calm and at ease. And because I've been in situations like that with my brother and with people with mental illness or, you know, who are on drugs. And I was just like, listen, honey, like, you got to go in. You're going to get picked up by the cops. And I'm just talking with her and stuff. But like the wave of calm that I felt when I saw her versus him, it just like, I just thinking about it later was like, wow, like it's just bizarre how you just kind of learn to, I don't know. It just made me realize that like you are impacted by things that happen when you're younger and you develop certain strategies. It's not a bad thing that I was calm and that I can handle that, but like that's not something that a lot of people would be like okay with seeing or like not shocked. And I wasn't, kind of because I had a feel for her before, but also I was just like, well,
yeah. But like you said, that's kind of a double-edged sword. Like it sucks that you had to grow up in any respect having that be in any way normal. That you would react in that way. I'm like, I'm not trying to be funny, but I'm like,
no, it's
true. That's shitty. But I'm like, you know, on the plus side, like you're healthy enough to see this as a skill. Yeah. That you can go into a situation like that and be calm and get someone help and advise them in a genuine way and not just be like, you know, a deer in the headlight.
You're right.
I think that's where dark humor comes from. I think people who've been through trauma get dark humor in a way that people who may not have witnessed or been through any sort of trauma just don't. And I think that's when people who haven't experienced trauma try to dark humor, it just comes across as mean. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of like white male comics don't do so well in trying to do dark comedy because it's really just mean and like
it has to come from an experience, like to be genuine, and that's some of the reasons.
Well, you need to know how bad you're like how far to go, like in terms of like to hurt someone. Like you're rubbing a bruise when you're doing dark humor. Yeah, and eventually it starts to feel good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh,
I do. I like rubbing bruises.
Tricia, I know you,
and I'm 37. But. So that's why I like this movie. That's why I chose this movie. It is a comedy, but there's a darkness to it, and my dark humor comes from some of those traumatic events and stuff. And that's why I feel at ease laughing about this comedy, because the way that I got through certain things, I had to laugh. And I had, like, the way I escaped was laughing and joking with my friends and coming up with stories. And so my humor was informed fully by that. And so I find a lot of things funny that some people won't. And then there's certain movies I can be, like, I don't get as disturbed, like psychologically disturbed by watching certain things. And it's just a threshold thing. Like, kind of, and it's just kind of one of those things, like, it's made me who I am. And I'm thankful for who I am, but it is sad that you do have to, everyone suffers. We're not terminally unique, but you have to suffer in a certain sense to be able to do those things.
Yeah. But part of what I like about it is addressing a harder topic of BPD and the perspectives of the family and the producers and in overall society. I liked this movie because I think it shows, to use your analogy from earlier, it is a mirror to society, but I think that what I see in that mirror might be different than what other people are seeing. Like my perspective, like growing up in like kind of a tumultuous home, Not kind of. It was a tumultuous home.
This is therapy session with Tessa and Tricia talking about our home lives.
You wanted it.
Yeah. You asked for it.
But, growing up the way that I grew up and having an undiagnosed bipolar person with anger issues in my home, and then other issues also, outside and movies was escape into be like in the position that I am now, and like the position that I want to move towards,
in a happier place, right? Like, is that why you watch a lot of comedies? You went that way instead? Oh, okay.
No, I don't. No, I mean, I don't watch comedy more than I watch anything else. Okay. I just choose comedy for the podcast because you don't watch comedy.
I'm all dark.
Yeah. So it's like, for balance's sake, I choose the opposite.
That's fine.
But no, I don't watch comedy more than I watch any other type of movie. Like, I could sit down and watch SVU for a complete 24-hour cycle and never get sick of it.
So addictive.
And yeah, I did that like 3 weeks ago. I was like, all SVU all the time? Yeah.
Because Olivia Benson.
Yeah, I love horror movies. I love dark shit. But I'm like, but what I want to see, especially like, and my purpose for wanting to do the podcast is to see the representation of women as flawed, but also have that be, be more reflective of women in society now, like, which is why I like this movie. Mm-hmm. I think Alice is a very real person. I can look out I could turn on any reality TV show and see who I think might be an Alice, or somebody in that same vein, like, who's kind of being exploited, and we're really asking ourselves as the viewers of this, what is our responsibility to somebody like Alice?
And the casting of Kristen Wiig, like, someone who is, how do I say this? She's very beautiful, but she's not, like, she doesn't have fake tits and she doesn't have fake lips. Like, she is a girl that we could know. You know what I mean? Like, I like seeing female leads that look like people I would know, rather than people who, like, she's not like I don't know, they didn't have some, like, it's not Angelina Jolie.
A funny thing that I've noticed in the movies that we've picked is that you pick a lot of women as strong female leads who look like you. You do. You do. If you think of the women that you pick, and I was like, I always wondered if that was like conscious or unconscious, but it seems like it was unconscious because I think I surprised you.
Are they? No, they're kind of pale with brown hair.
Brown hair, blue-eyed, tall. You pick women who look like you, and I'm like, and then I think that's again why I wanted to do the podcast, because representation matters. You see yourself as and it's true, as a complex woman who's a strong female lead in her own life, and you want that reflected in what you see. And that's why I think it's important to do podcasts like this, because people who are like more like me, or, as in brown people or Asian people, aren't seeing that reflected, and we don't have like a wheelhouse of women like to unconsciously choose from who look like us and represent us in media.
I did notice that I typically am picking like movies that feature white women, but
even more specific.
But I didn't realize that they'll have like similar physical features to me, and that is really fucking hilarious, and it's totally subconscious.
I was debating on whether to say that because I was like, it's gonna ruin it for the future.
Well, now I'm clearly,
because now you're conscious of it, but I always think that that's funny because you were unconsciously doing it, 100%, and I just thought it was funny.
100%. It's incredible insight. It makes me feel a little less complex.
Right. But I think that's like, I don't want to say like it is privilege.
Yeah,
to see that reflected, and then it's such a blessing, in my opinion, and that's why I love that.
I can pick from a wheelhouse of complex characters that also physically
and non-complex ones.
Yeah,
I'll take the dumb ones too. I'll take the typical comedy girl, and I want to talk about her too. Like, why am I always like
a true
Jenny from the block, and I can never be?
Yeah,
I can't be. Nancy Botwin. Yeah. People who look like me can't be Nancy Botwin.
Yeah.
Which is why I hated the black characters a little bit in Weeds, and I'm like, we can't do that. Yeah. That's privilege.
Yeah.
Or we haven't been written to do that. And that's why I loved Us. We were exactly that like typical like boring ass family. Like,
and that's my own privilege showing. And it's funny because I am aware of these things that are going on, and I do know what it's like in the sense that I'm a woman, just like that there's a lot more roles for males, but in terms of females, there's a lot more strong female leads that are white, Caucasian women. For me to subconsciously do that does show like how deep it goes, and how lucky I am to be able to pick from a slew of them because I'm being drawn to them because there's something familiar. There's a little piece of me in all of the characters that I choose. Mm-hmm. And then the fact that they might resemble me.
Yeah, and I think like, I've had, unfortunately, the opposite experience is that I don't see women who look like me, speak like me in media until very recently. So I think the characters I choose are like across the gamut because I take it's just, something I can identify from like all of these little, from Belle and from, what's her name from Shrill, and like I do feel like as a minority viewer of like majority, just like of culture, like it is also a privilege to be on the other side and just to constantly be critiquing culture, and then not be on the receiving end of critique in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. It is a privilege. I have Black woman privilege, and that I'm not critiqued in a lot of things that I do or say by wider society. I'm judged for being Black, but I can say whatever I want, and you can't societally say something back.
That's like an underhanded privilege. Like, it's sad that you...
It's like dark comedy. I get to laugh at this because I have experienced this.
God damn, off the rails. But this movie, it brings out a lot of stuff, man. It's all white people.
It's all white people.
The lead has a physical resemblance to me.
Also true.
Oh God. So at the end, she has a breakdown, and then she basically like is over the talk show. Like she has a final send out, right? And it's a little bit kinder to the people that she put down. Mm-hmm. I did relate to, this is why the friend told me this girl reminded her of me, was...
Does that offend you? Are you like more offended than you are like laughing at people saying that? Like,
no.
I feel like if I heard it once, I'd be like, haha. And then like if I heard it again, I'd be like, what?
No, because I know what they're talking about. Yeah. They're talking about like the mannerisms or like the quirky interests. The reason she told me is I've told you guys I get real hung up on like wrongs that were done to me as child. Like I always tell one of my best friends how she like didn't stick up for me when everyone said they were going to a movie and then told me they weren't, and then they all went to a movie. Like I bring up that kind of stuff, and so her things about the makeup bag, and my friend was like, I can see you wanting to reenact something like that. I'm like, I would, because it sticks with me forever. That's it. Shit. Welcome to me, man. So I think she's top billed, moved the plot along, has her own agency, almost to a fault. Someone may have needed to take away some agency at some point for her.
Yeah, this is the first instance of perhaps too much agency.
But, I love the movie. I would give it, I laugh out loud whenever I watch it. But I've only seen it twice. I would give it...
Let's do a scale of swan boats.
Love that. I would give it 4 out of 5 swan boats.
I think I'm going to give it maybe 3.5 out of 5. This is a good movie. Like, it's not uproariously funny to me, though it has its moments, and it is just, like, amazing to see, like, what somebody would do if they had won $86 million in a California lottery.
So thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at StrongFemalePod.
Mm-hmm. And on Twitter at SFL_Chicago.
And that's it for now.
One more thing. Women in Comedy, the group that brought the three together, is doing an event in Chicago. So for all of our Chicago listeners, if you want to come see a panel of comedians talk about how to get on stage and get behind the camera, you should sign up for it. It's a free event. It's taking place on July 21st at Laugh Factory. You can find it if you go search for Women in Comedy on Facebook, there is an Eventbrite link. Or you can just type in Inside Jokes Chicago on Eventbrite and you'll find it. Yes. Or just email us, Twitter us,
check our social media.
Yeah, we'll tell you where it is.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
I was born in the year 1971 in Simi Valley, California, and I've been using masturbation as a sedative since 1991.